Legacy Starlord, aka Awesome. Welcome back to my channel. And this is the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger movie. And then we're also going to be talking about Turbo, which also just Dave Frank was in as the White Power Ranger. And this one, he has his Ninjetti powers, but also he has his regular powers, which is um the White Tiger. But I think this one he was an eagle. Um, Billy was a wolf. I forget the Mexican guy's name, but like I forgot her name too. But Kimberly was a crane. She was a bear. I think he was a gorilla. Rocky was a gorilla. He was a frog. And then this is how they introduced the second season. Well, not the second season. This is how they introduced the next season with their Ninjetti powers from being. They also still morphed into their Power Ranger costumes, but also the Ninjetti powers. But they got the Ninjetti powers on here. Um, in this movie, but this movie was actually set up. This movie was set up right after like a couple seasons of the TV show, but this movie was pretty much the biggest 90s movie ever out there and starring Jason David Frank obviously when he was younger, and everyone loved this movie. I loved it when I was a kid. I watched it not in theaters, but I watched it in a boardroom. I think I mentioned this before in another video when I reviewed it before. Um, But I watched it in the boardroom at my mom's old workplace when I was a little kid with some other kids, and we watched it and we remember it. We remember Ivan's ooze. We remember everything that goes on in this. And I even have a DVD copy of this and I rewatch it. And then I have the Turbo movie digitally. But in between the TV show and this, it was kind of cool to see this happen, and then they had the Jetty powers in the TV show. But then, like seeing this on the big screen and seeing Power Rangers on the big screen, the seeing the Zords on the big screen look different than the TV show, and using different technology and using different cameras and making it not like a small kids 90s TV show where we all loved and adored. This was on a bigger scale. And they also went to a different planet to save Zordon, and Zordon needed saving because of Ivan's ooze and Rita Repulsa and Lord Zedwood in the in this joint in this movie. They weren't in this mug. Um, they basically weren't there. They mean they were there, but they weren't there to like, oh my gosh, to be the person that they're interfering with. And them going on a different planet and them fighting like skeleton dinosaurs and and other things instead of um putties. I mean, they did fight putties in the beginning, but those putties were well, yeah, the putties were normal, and then the putties in this one were more Iron News putties, where they're like gooey um bird-like creatures. This movie is just different and unique in itself. And the fact that also Jason David Frank is doing like a passion pro now that he's actually doing a passion project with Bat in the Sun, and the writer and director and co-writer of that is also Jason David Frank. Um, Making a passion project called Legend of the White Dragon and having some elements from well where he came from Power Rangers, but not being Power Rangers because he's not Tommy Oliver in there. He's Eric Reed, and it's completely different character, but taking from what it is from here and making it more like a grown-up version. I can't wait, a more grown-up version of Power Rangers. This is gonna be fun. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be kind of cool to see this see that. But like growing up and watching this show and having dedication and having dedication for Jason the Frank that changed most of our childhoods in the early 90s. This man right here, I mean, we're this man right here changed the way we looked at the Power Rangers. We were already watching Power Rangers. We were already watching it with Billy Kimberly. That's not Trini, but I think that's Aisha. I think Aisha, and then there was Trini, and then there was Jason, and there was Rocky. But like without Justin David Frank coming in and being Tommy and changing the whole dynamic of the team from being, like I said, being the evil Green Power Ranger to becoming good Green Power Ranger for a little bit, and then losing that power, becoming the White Power Ranger, and him becoming the White Power Ranger. Like I said in my White Power Ranger video, he his Power Ranger came from a different Power Ranger team that looked exactly like the rest of that team, but they took Japanese stock footage, and then when it was just Jason David Frank was just in what, California. They filmed some stuff in California, just playing Tommy Oliver, and then they took the Japanese Scott's footage, just his own Scott footage, and put it with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers stock footage with the others. But eventually they started making their own They started eventually making their own content, their own American content, because it makes sense to have this Power Ranger. This Power Ranger was taken from a different team. The White Tiger Power Ranger was taken from a different team, and they just put and matched it with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But that's made it so cool because when they point to the main when they point to they got to this movie right here, they had to come up with their own footage. And the White Power Ranger was already established, so they came up with their own footage even before this movie came out, so they could make this movie. But also this coming from Japan and making Americanized for us American people, that's great. Even the Japanese versions, the Sentai versions are on Tubi, but I need to go back on Tubi to watch that, and I'll go back on Tubi to watch the original ones of these because I was watching this on Netflix. I don't know if Netflix still has it, but I grew up watching the show and I grew up watching this movie, and I'm about to talk about the next movie, Power Rangers Turbo, but this is also leading into the next season that they were using the Ninjetti powers. So it's kind of cool. You got two powers in here. You got the regular state of morphing into a regular Power Rangers to becoming ninjas. And when they morphed into, well, when they didn't want to morph into their Power Ranger suits, they used a ninja costume, their ninja powers, and they just covered up their mask. They covered up their faces with the mask of a regular ninja. And I think that's great. It makes it more vulnerable to them not having the suits on because as you can see here, everyone's belt underneath their suit is all white except Jason's. Jason's is black. Um, so it's pretty awesome that they have Ninjetti powers. And it's pretty awesome that this movie was made back in that time period too, because it's was everyone's childhood dream. So I'm gonna go to the next, flip to the next thing, next screen, real quick. Now we're talking about the Power Ranger Turbo movie, and you can see how there's no blue Power Ranger in there because the blue Power Ranger was supposed to be Rocky, the same people, except Kimberly's not. there, and I think Aisha or the other black girl is still there, but you have Jason David Frank right there as the Red Power Ranger, as the leader, and you have Carlos. I remember that's Carlos. The Blue Power Ranger was just a kid. The Blue Power Ranger is just a kid, and the Blue Power Ranger is really close to Rocky. And matter of fact, in the TV show, even in this movie, he when he morphs, he grows 10 times taller to be just the same size as the adults. But in this movie was basically right after Power Rangers. I mean, basically this movie, yeah, basically this movie was right after Power Rangers Turbo. I mean, basically right after Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, kind of after Zero. Um, so it was Zero and then Turbo, and then you had Turbo for lasting a couple seasons here and there, and then you have them make a movie. But this movie was kind of like a kind of a sequel after Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, kind of in a way, even though Zero came. You had Zero, and then you had Power, and then you had Zero, then Turbo, and then Power Rangers in space. But this was kind of the next um, sequel to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie because in Zero you had still had Tommy Oliver as the leader, as the Red Power Ranger, and this one you have him as the Turbo Power Ranger for sure. Um, um, and it's great to have Tommy as the uh, Red Mighty Morphin Power. I mean, the as the Red a Turbo Power Ranger because when he gave his powers up in mid-season to I don't know the black guy's character's name, but the black guy in there, it was kind of cool to transition because he was done with being a Power Ranger at that time. But this movie was different as well because you still saw them in their zero Power Ranger suits, and they were transitioning into Turbo. So this was pretty much the end. The Zero was pretty much this movie was pretty much a season finale for Zero because Zero was pretty much over at the time they this was pretty much their season premiere, kind of their big giant season premiere of Turbo. But this movie was kind of more fun and more energizing because you actually see them like the main I forget her name, but the main villain was terrorizing some wizards in the very beginning, his family, and they're helping on the wizard, and the wizard was kind of like a a puppeteer, and they had like cool little puppeteer wizard. They're helping him out and also taking out some villain that's supposed to be in Power Rangers in the Galaxy, and it's a whole bunch of different things. But Power Rangers Turbo was just had that energy of like kind of like Fast and Furious meets Power Rangers because they had cars that were really Zords that were cars that were really fast and really and can really go out there and get there to like in the desert because they were driving their cars through the desert and through jungle, and then like the Blue Power Ranger meets up with them a little bit later in a pirate ship because they got a little boy to play him. And the Japanese one, I don't think is a little kid, but in this one, he's a kid. And the kid wasn't ready yet. But I mean, the Power Rangers knew the kid because he was, I mean, he was part of their the rec center and everything, but like they never thought he would be a Power Ranger. So that's the thing. But also, like I said, this is like Fast and Furious meets Power Rangers, but also seeing Tommy as the leader once again from being Zero to Turbo was kind of cool. And also seeing just there Frank going from green to white to red, and then later on, like I said, going to black, and then going back to do a shadow grid thing to being going back to being white and green at the same time, and then coming back to being well his passion project, which is Legend of the White Dragon, which I'm seeing tonight, going back to being a white Power Ranger like esque character. Um, Jason Frank is just awesome to be a Power Ranger because he had different colors, but his main two colors are green and white, and then then he's two red Power Rangers, and he was black, and now he's back to being white again. Um, and the reason why I left Shattered Grid out because Shattered Grid is a comic book and it's still canon, but like it's the comic book version of Tommy is different, as we all know. And I'd already did a comic book version of the last Power Ranger Green, and Tommy's the last Green Power Ranger. And then they had a comic book also with something Dragon something where they have him as a Turbo and Zero and Black and his other and his two Mind Morphin Power Ranger things. So yeah, but also just Turbo itself having Tommy be the leader and growing from him being the sixth ranger, the two times being the sixth ranger, and learning from also St. John's character, which is Jason, and then him fully taking over after Jason left. Because Rocky to me was a leader, but he wasn't that strong of a leader. Him being the White Power Ranger as the Sixth Ranger being leader, and then him finally being him finally being the Zero main Red Power Ranger, and then being again another main Red Power Ranger for Turbo, transitioning to being two Red Power Rangers being the main leader, not just the Sixth Ranger that also helps lead, because the Sixth Ranger helps lead the rest of the Power Rangers. If the Red Power Ranger can't be there, he helps lead. Every Sixth Ranger helps lead if the Red Power Ranger can't be there, but the Red Power Ranger is the main leader. And seeing Jason David Frank in that being Tommy in that position of being Red Turbo and Red Zero and being that leader is just amazing. And then him also helping out newer generation team members move on from being, okay, well, I can't do this anymore, so I'm going to give my powers to someone else that's new and helping him along the way before gave up his powers, and also helping others do that. Because even when he was the Black Power Ranger and Dino Thunder as the Sixth Ranger, he helped out the Red Power Ranger there and the Blue Power Ranger and the Yellow Power Ranger that was there and also helping the White Power Ranger in that one that was also evil. So we went back to that storyline with the White Power. This time, a White Power Ranger was evil, helping out him because he knew the struggle of being an evil Power Ranger when he first started. I know there's been a lot about this, but like I should be talking about Turbo, but like I already talked about Turbo and I talked about my more Power Ranger on here as a review on my channel. I'm just briefly going through this because reason why is because I'm excited for Legend of the White Dragon. Legend of the White Dragon is coming out tonight, and I'm going to do a review on that as well. I also did Coyote versus Acne. Coyote versus Acne was pretty good. I highly recommend checking that out. And check out my other videos on here. I did do Power Rangers Green issue one, so read that. I have to find out when issue two comes out, and I'll do issue two on that because that was a good read as well. So, and I always talk about Power Rangers. I talk about other content as well in here, Marvel, DC, different things. The next video after I do the Legend of the White Dragon is talking about some celebrities that were important in my childhood, like the voice of Optimus Prime, the actual guy who played it, Home Alone, and Thornberrys, and a legendary singer that changed the way country music is and the way she did had some movies and the way she did those movies and all that stuff. And that'll be coming up pretty soon. And I think I might talk about the girl from Nashville and also Heroes, but like for a little brief time, for a little bit brief of that as well. But mainly those three are mainly talked because they're prevalent in my childhood or around my childhood because I know about them. But also as we're talking about Jason and Frank is also gone. It's been what 3 years, and it's been a passion project for his movie to be out in theaters. And he finally gets to be in theaters, but he doesn't get to see it, and that's pretty sad. I mean, Also might add him into that as well in that video too. But as we're talking about, like Jason and Frank wanted to see this come out, but fortunately he gave in to his mental health. His mental health wasn't good, and he gave in to the only thing he knew what to do was, you know, sacrifice himself and not get help or tried it. I mean, maybe he had got help before, but maybe the help didn't work. But it was good to see him alive playing the Green Power Ranger, Mind Morphin Power Ranger, the White Mind Morphin Power Ranger, the Turbo and Zero, and then Black Power Ranger, and then going back to being uh um was it Draken? Yeah, Draken, and then him coming back to being another dragon, but a white dragon facing Dragon Prime, and this whole new different type of storyline that he created with Bat in the Sun. So if you like this video, put a like, comment, subscribe, with the notification bell. This has been about Mind Morphin Power Rangers and Turbo. And if you again, if you like this, put a like, comment, subscribe, with the notification bell, and deuces. I'll get the other video out after I do the Legend of the White Dragon video. And there might be another Coyote versus Acne video as well. So, deuces.